On this day that anxiety and apprehension is abound in Kenya, as reports the Standard. Moment of truth. Now, what next? Kenyans today wake up to uncertainty and apprehension. The state has vowed to stop the planned swearing in of NASA leader Raila Odinga. The state has also threatened to shut down and revoke licenses for media houses that broadcast the event. But NASA insists that the show will go on. Now, later on in the show, we'll be having a Member of Parliament for Nyando constituency, Jared Okello, as well as Nairobi County Assembly Speaker Beatrice Elachi, to help us look at what's making headlines. Like I told you, the Standard this morning, moment of truth. And on page 5 of the Standard, there's an Alama state is in fresh threat to gag the media. Picture there where Stephen Leto will be camped. Uhuru Park. Yesterday, police had outlawed the Nasser rally and all meetings at the venue until further notice. And Stephen Leto will be telling us in a short while what's taking place. Quite an interesting photo on page 2, a break from politics and all the rest. I don't know if my director has the photo. Page 2, there was a football match in Nakuru pitting FC Leopards and Gor Mahia, the season opener, Super Cup, and the mode of dressing for the fans. Was quite interesting. Some of them carrying chicken, fish, unga, flour, sugarcane, and what they perceive as Bibles, and actually having people dressed as priests. I'll be asking my director later on to see if we can get that hilarious shot in the second page of the Standard. Page 4 and 5 of the Standard, like I told you earlier, it's all about the NASA swearing in. Tension as NASA vows to go ahead with the swearing in. Police have vowed to barricade Uhuru Park, the planned venue of the swearing in, as a first option to thwart the event. Now, there's a snippet of the countdown. Raila spends his last day at the Milimani, his day yesterday at the Milimani Court and his Capitol Hill office. Kalonzo and Mudavadi spent their mornings at Machakos Law Courts in a show of solidarity with Wiper Party Governor candidate Wavinya Ndeti. Senate leader minority Moses Wetangula arrives in the country from Paris, where he was on official duty, and all NASA leaders are supposed to join their supporters at Uhuru Park today. Of course, there is the letter by the Editors Guild chairman, Linus Kekai, protesting what he terms as threats to gag the media over coverage of the NASA event today. Also on page 5, youth storm Nyong'o's office and demand buses. Now, they claim that they had been promised they would be ferried to Nairobi for Raila's oath. They went there in hundreds, demanding that that promise be kept. Page 7 of the Standard. Sadly, one of the 6 people who died in the inferno at Kijiji in Lang'ata is said to have been an infant. As the last smoldering debris was yesterday cleared, it emerged that the furious fire had actually claimed the life of an infant and his mother. This revelation brings to the number of those who lost their lives in the fire to 6. Yesterday, a horde of leaders led by Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko visited the scene in the evening after earlier on suspending Nairobi Fire Department head Brian Kisali for the sluggish response to the disaster that has so far left 14,000 people homeless. Quite a sad incident indeed. The Deputy President William Ruto paid a visit to the scene of the accident and promised that the government will be spending about 70 million shillings to rebuild houses for those who lost their houses. Also on the Standard, hawkers using chemicals to prolong shelf life of milk. Now, be wary if you're consuming automatically dispensed milk from some of the vending machines. Greedy vendors, that is page 10 and page 11 of the Standard. Greedy vendors and hawkers are using hydrogen peroxide and formalin to preserve the product. Now, there is high chance that you could be unknowingly consuming milk that is laced with lethal chemical. You are asked, it's said, buyers beware. Page 13 of the Standard. Now, human rights activist Okiya Mtata sues President Uhuru Kenyatta over the new and what it terms illegal cabinet posts. President Uhuru Kenyatta has submitted the names of 23 nominees for the post of cabinet secretary, principal secretaries, and ambassadors to Parliament for vetting. As this happens, on page 10 of page 13 rather of the Standard, it is said that human rights activist Okiya Omtata went to court to contest the legality of the nominees, especially those in the chief accounting secretaries. The commentaries, page 14 and 15 of the Standard, and on page 1 of the Daily Nation, what to expect on this day of conflict. Like I told you earlier, the Nation had looked at what they know so far, that the public should be seated by 8:30, that the opposition MPs and other invited guests are supposed to arrive at 9, that NASA principals led by Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka are scheduled to arrive on the venue at 10 o'clock, and at 11 o'clock, a speech will be delivered by one of the members of the coordinating committee of the People's Assembly. At 12 o'clock, 12 p.m., Raila is supposed to take oath of office as the People's President, then proceed to give his speech. Now, that, according to the Daily Nation, is what they know. What they don't know is that who will swear in Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka, what kind of oath will they be taking, what happens next after the oath, and what will Raila tell his supporters, and of course, where will Raila and Kalonzo go after the ceremony. On their side, according to the Nation, the police are planning to deploy prison warders who've temporarily been gazetted as police officers. The Nairobi County Police Commander maintains that Uhuru Park will be out of bounds for the public. Plainclothes police officers will be patrolling the city and guarding against looting, mugging, and destruction of property. Now, GSU and administration officers will also be stationed at Uhuru Park and the surrounding areas. And the Regional Commissioner, Bana Laparamarai, says that there will be no illegal assembly allowed in Nairobi today. More on this, page 4, page 5, and page 6 of the Daily Nation, where there is page 5, tight security ahead of Raila event. Groups headed for a clash over swearing in. A showdown looms between Nairobi business community and NASA supporters today. Group's chairman, Nairobi Business Community, William Kamau, says they will not allow businesses to be disrupted by NASA's planned swearing in of Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka at the Uhuru Park as the People's President. On the same page, page 5 of the Daily Nation, now IEBC comes out and speaks on allegations on electoral malpractices during the August 8th elections. Now, the electoral body has sought to set the record straight regarding the claims by the opposition that it tolerated electoral malpractices in the August 8th general election, which consequently denied presidential victory to their candidates. Other stories making headlines on the front page of the Daily Nation. Did you know that the phone is becoming a hard drug for teenagers? Now, have you ever wondered what your child is up to on their mobile phone? Do you know who they are exchanging texts with, photos, or who they are chatting with on WhatsApp? It's more important to note that your child is at high risk of mobile phone addiction. This is according to the United Nations Children's Fund reports on research that estimates that 1 in every 3 internet users worldwide today is a child, and that there is cause for concern. Also making headlines, a new bridge that is being constructed across the Likoni, across the 902 structures will be demolished to pave way for the construction of an 80 billion Likoni bridge. The Mombasa Gate Bridge will link the island to South Coast, and currently the Likoni and Tongwe channels are the only links that connect the island and the mainland. The story of interest starts on page 1 and ends on page 9. Bring back our shisha. Tourism Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala says the banning of shisha by the Health Ministry is misguided, and now he demands a revocation of that order. Balala says the ban has led to closure of some entertainment joints. It's hurting the economy. That's page 9 of this Daily Nation, and is asking the Health Ministry to instead introduce punitive tax on the products to make it more expensive and help use it to generate revenue. Other stories on page 4 of the Daily Nation, like I told you, what to expect today in NASA All Things Fit, which we have looked at in details. And of course, page 8 of the Daily Nation, helpless families watched as their loved ones died and houses were wiped out during the fire incident at Kijiji village in Langata. The Deputy President visited the village yesterday to grieve with those who had lost their loved ones and also console those who had lost their property and residence, and promised that the government will be using 70 million shillings to reconstruct houses for those who lost their houses. Now, the judgment in Ms. Wavinya Ndeti's petition challenging the election of Governor Alfred Mutua is also captured on page 8 of the Daily Nation, and the ruling will be delivered on Friday next week following the conclusion by submitting parties yesterday. Other stories making headlines, back page of the Daily Nation, activist sues Uhuru over new cabinet post, a story that has also been aptly covered by the Standard. Okia Omtata, activist, now says the creation of the position of the Chief Administrative Secretary is without public participation and therefore not within the law. We are expecting Nairobi County Assembly Speaker Beatrice Elachi to join us on the set any time now. We'll also be going out to our reporters across the country to let you know what's happening in regard to the swearing-in ceremony by NASA at Uhuru Park. But already in the studio, Jared Okelo, Member of Parliament for Nyando constituency. Mushma, good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome.
Thank you for...
The last time I checked, you had promised to resign if Raila was not sworn in on 28th December.
And that is going to happen today, so I'm still in office.
What was that about, anyway? A quick one.
Well, it was about the electoral injustice that the people of Kenya have been exposed to for way too long. We all know about what happened in 2007, that, you know, brought a lot of chaos and violence, claiming thousands of lives, you know, deportation of population. And the culprits, in quotes, had to face the wrath at the ICC. Of course, they were later on cleared for reasons better known to them and the judges at the ICC. And then 2013 came, and the story was the same. We had just created a new constitution that therefore paved way for creation of the Supreme Court. So the issues surrounding that particular election went to the Supreme Court. And, you know, CORD at the time had very cogent evidence. In fact, more cogent than what vitiated the last elections of 8th of August. But the judges then, under the stewardship of Mutunga, thought that, you know, we didn't have a case enough to vacate that particular election. So that was another turning point for this country. Then, of course, 2013 came. And the story was still the same. So if we as a people are going to perennially entertain issues of electoral theft every electoral cycle, then we are not going to have hope as a nation. The only way that nations move under the pretext of democratization is that elections must be free and fair. If you read the Kenya's constitution right from Article 81 to Article 97, it talks about purity of elections, and that is not even enough.
Whose mandate is it to determine the fairness or free atmosphere for an election?
Well, it is...
Is it the participants?
Firstly, it begins with the Kenyan people.
Who are the participants?
Who wake up early in the morning to go and cast their ballot. So it all begins there. Then the umpire of an electoral process, which is Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, takes charge. And we have seen them consistently failing the Kenyan people, aligning themselves to particular political divides, particular individuals within the executive, and deliberately messing up the electoral merchandise. We had, you know, these last elections, you know, this sham exercise of the 26th of August, akin to Uhuru Kenyatta's birthday celebration, where a commissioner had to leave the country for a simple reason that there was no faith amongst the commissioners and the secretariat. So all these were concerns that were raised not just locally but internationally, and she had to flee in order to safeguard her life. And then the chairperson, Mr. Chebukati, came the following day, and the claims were the same. And he said, as the chairperson of IEBC, I do not have confidence. And that was a week, just simply a week.
But he came out again, Mheshimiwa, I think a few hours to the election, just about 48 hours, and gave an assurance that now I am satisfied. Everything that was unclear has been made clear, and we are ready to go for the polls.
He brought about fundamental concerns that had potential to bedevil the entire election, and those were real concerns that had to be addressed. You know, their association or relationship amongst the commissioners. Then there was the issue of certain commissioners taking orders from State House. Then there was the unpreparedness, the general unpreparedness of that election. But we all know that this guy, a few days later, went to meet President President Uhuru Kenyatta in Harambee House. As a chairperson, first and foremost, you do not accept to meet a participant or in an electoral process in his or her own office.
Is that a perception or is that law?
Well,
is there any law that says he couldn't meet the president at the president's office?
The rule of natural justice would demand that they come to you. Because then, when you have to umpire an electoral process, you then have to be above those participants in order to be seen to be fair and to be impartial. But when a chairperson of an electoral body goes into the office of a participant, really, what do you expect? And the body language.
But even as you say that, Mheshimiwa, and borrowing from your opening statement.
Well, let me just finish.
Yeah, you will. But even as you do that, please tell me about you saying that the people decide if an election is free and fair. Half of the country, or close to half of the country, feel the election was free and fair.
Let me finish on that. We saw then, a few days after Chebukati met with Kenyatta, that then he backpedaled and said that, you know, we are now prepared. And a process, a meeting that lasted barely 30 minutes, gave a nod to an impending election. At 30 minutes. And yet, you look at the raft of issues that this guy raised that have to be addressed in order that the election can have full confidence of the Kenyan people, could not just be addressed in a sitting of 30 minutes. So that was a betrayal to the Kenyan people. Now, people have always said half of the people are in sync with that kind of election. Almost half or half. But let's come back to basics. And I'm basing my argument on the election of the 26th. Now, if we have to marry the two, the election that happened on the 8th of August, 80% of the Kenyan people came out to vote.
The election that was nullified by the court.
Well, the declaration of Uhuru Kenyatta as president was nullified by the court. So, 80% came out to vote. Another round of election was conducted on the 26th. And remember, Uhuru was competing against himself on the 26th.
No. There were other candidates, Mheshimiwa.
Well,
for clarity of record.
Well, I don't know them. There
was there were so many others.
Oh, well, I don't.
Ekuru Aukot was there.
Who is that? Well, let me come back to my thought process, lest it gets distorted. When Kenyans came out on the 26th of October to cast their ballot in favor of the single candidate, Uhuru Kenyatta, 3.5 million, as was positively identified by the KIEMS machine, and that is a matter of fact, came out to vote in Uhuru Kenyatta. 3.5 million is representative of 17%. But let me then be generous enough, turned philanthropic, and now give them what they added and claim that 7.5 million Kenyans came out to vote. That represents 30%. Now you have 30% against 80% at the very initial stage, a gap of 50%. Now, the rule of natural justice would always demand that the majority rules as the minority have their say. So we have 30% of Kenyans, and that is way below half of the Kenyan population that you were talking about, now wanting to discharge the mandate of the presidency on behalf of the 50%.
Why didn't the 70% participate?
Because they had no faith in that election. they believed, rightly so, that Raila Odinga won together with Kalonzo Musyoka on the 8th of August. And when they then vacated that election and said, we are not going to participate in that, all his supporters followed him in that abandonment. And that is what is therefore representative of the 50+% that never came out to vote.
So the assumption is that the 70% of Kenyans who didn't turn up to vote would have
are Raila Odinga supporters. And if
that assumption is based on what?
That assumption is based on what happened on the 26th. That they had all the time and leverage and latitude to come out to vote, and they just abandoned the process. Why? Because their presidential candidate wasn't participating in the process.
Mheshimiwa, you and I know that in some places they wanted to vote, but they were not able to vote because there were no election materials. There were chaos. There was confusion. Some say it was instigated, others say it came naturally. So it does not automatically go that they wanted to vote.
I'm not aware that there are particular people who were refused or stopped from casting their vote. You understand that during any election here in Kenya, the kind of mobilization that is done by the security apparatus would deter any person who has the wherewithal and the conviction to stop an electoral process. And we saw how the police was mobilized to various parts of this country. And therefore to come out to claim that people could have torpedoed the wishes of the electorate to the detriment of success of the police force is neither here nor there. That is misplaced.
So where are we now?
So what we are saying is that those who refused to come out to cast their votes did so on their own volition because their president did not participate in the election.
So where are we now, Mheshimiwa? The standard says the Kenyans wake up to uncertainty and apprehension. The Daily Nation is saying some of the things that we don't know is who will swear in Raila Odinga. That's uncertainty. What kind of oath will they be taking? Where will Raila and Kalonzo go after the ceremony? And bearing in mind, our constitution is very clear on the date of the swearing in of the president.
Now, first and foremost, the people become supreme than the constitution. The constitution was made for the people and not people made for the constitution. So everything begins there. Now, we have consistently talked about Article 1, Sub-Article 2 of the Kenya's Constitution, which therefore gives the sovereignty of the country to the people. Yes. So everything begins and settles there. Now, let me backtrack a bit.
And the article goes further to say that and will be exercised.
Correct.
According to the law.
Yes. And by... Yes, according to the law. Yeah. And let me backtrack a bit on an element that featured quite prominently after the vacation of the 8th of August elections. Now, you saw Uhuru Kenyatta and his brigade coming out very forcefully to castigate the conduct of the Supreme Court. And as a remedy, therefore, they chose to make very serious amendments in the electoral laws, some of which gave powers to any commissioner to declare presidential results. Additionally, gave any High Court judge the latitude to swear in a president. So, and that was very quickly signed into law by Uhuru Kenyatta. He did not actually sign it physically, but the mere fact that 2 weeks elapsed, that therefore makes the law operational. So it is part of our laws at the moment.
True that.
So
true that. It's an act of parliament, right?
Correct.
Which one is supreme, an act of parliament or the constitution? You'll answer that when we get back. I am told that one of our reporters, like we promised, Wilkista Nyabwa, is set to bring us up to speed on what's happening. Remember, we have them across the country. Stephen Leto at Uhuru Park, Bernard Ndong at the city center, Francis Gashuri is on Gong Road, Willis Raburu is in Kisumu, Mercy Kandia is also in Karen. But now we join Wilkista Nyabwa, who is at the residence of NASA leader Raila Odinga in Karen, to tell us what's happening. Wilkista, if you can hear me.
Good morning, Charles. We are actually at the entrance. We are on the road that leads to the residence of Raila Odinga, and we have not been able to go any further than this place. The security setup is such that we cannot go beyond that barrier, and so we have had to just wait here, waiting to see what transpires. This morning, we are informed that NASA leader Raila Odinga is actually at his residence, although we cannot quite say with 100% certainty about this. So that is what we have been informed, but we will also just be keeping an eye, because if he is indeed in, we will be waiting for him to just come out and then make his way all the way down to Uhuru Park later in the morning, probably before 8 a.m. Just starting the procession. But so far it is very, very quiet here. We haven't really seen the police here. We haven't seen much security deployed to this place, and even as we were headed here on Ngong Road, we did see people going about their business, going to work. Traffic was basically normal. It does seem very, very quiet at this point. Things might change a little later in the day, but at this point it's very quiet. No signs of anything going on around this place. So that is what is going on. That is what is unfolding so far, and we will just be staying put, waiting to see if we'll be allowed in, or if we'll have to wait here to see whether there's a convoy that will be leaving later in the morning. Charles.
Wilkisa, probably you mentioned at the beginning that you have been barred from entering by the security. Are you referring to the resident security or police?
Sorry, Charles, take that again, please.
Earlier on you mentioned that you have been barred from going beyond the barrier by security. Are you referring to the police, or are you referring to estate security?
I'm sorry, Charles, I can't hear you very clearly. I cannot hear you very clearly.
Sorry, Wilkis.
Perhaps later in the morning we'll be able to respond to some of your queries as well.
Thank you very much, Wilkis. Wilkis Nyabwa coming to us live from Karen, the residence of NASA leader Raila Odinga. I'm also informed that Stephen Leto, who is camping at the Uhuru Park, is now ready to tell us what's happening. Stephen, can you hear me?
Well, a very good morning to you there, Charles, in studio. A moment ago, we got into Uhuru Park. We haven't seen police officers really ring-fence this particular park that is now the stage that NASA says it is going to use during its controversial swearing-in ceremony slated for today. But Charles, we are right at the midst or the heart of the Uhuru Park grounds, and what we have met is a handful of NASA supporters. We've been able to see some of them saying that they traveled overnight. For instance, some are saying they came from Homa Bay and they arrived early this morning. And right now, as you can see, those, that is the ground. Still, there are no, activities going on. And even until this moment, Charles, we haven't, seen the stage that being set by the organizers of this particular event. And so the park remains, or Uhuru Park remains as it was yesterday, and that there are no chairs that we see right there at the podium. If my cameraman can be able to zoom just right at that podium where it is, according to the NASA organizers, they say that that is at the podium where Raila Odinga, other dignitaries, as well as some other leaders in the coalition are going to use, during this particular ceremony. But as you can see, just a handful of people trying to, walk around that podium. There is no music or sound system that has been set up in that podium. There are no seats. There is no any indication that there will be an event here, apart from NASA supporters who have showed up saying that indeed this is where they are going to, witness the swearing-in of Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka as the people's president. But if we can just walk towards that end, is we see a little bit of people starting streaming in bit by bit, and as for now, we haven't received any information on whether, there is plans to, set up this particular podium. Those are just pictures that we are bringing them to you right from Uhuru Park, and we still trying to gather some little pieces of information regarding on what will be transpiring and how things will pan out from that end. But as for now, Charles, we will keep on bringing to you the pictures from this end of Uhuru Park, and to see whether we will be able also to see whether we can get some few leaders coming all this way to see the preparations and see what will be transpiring from this end. Those, of course, Charles, are the supporters we are talking about who have started streaming into Uhuru Park. We are told that some of them are on their way, and that some even traveled overnight to come right into Uhuru Park, where the National Super Alliance has said and clarified that this is where they will be holding that controversial event that has since been termed by the government as a high treason should it be allowed to transpire. But of course, I just want to show you again, Charles, pictures from behind the Uhuru Park, where some of the supporters were coming toward, coming all that way. And so there is a little bit of commotion, Charles. There is a swarm of bees that have been, provoked here at Uhuru Park, and it is, trying to, let's say, destabilize or, bring people attention. Those are the pictures that is just behind Uhuru Park. Those are the pictures we're bringing them to you. Those are just the pictures we are, bringing them to you from Uhuru Park, Charles. And as and when we gather more information on what will be transpiring right here at Uhuru Park, we will be able again to come back to you, Charles. But of course, there are a lot of issues that are surrounding the swearing in of Raila Odinga. Some issues, you had already put it earlier today, is who will swear in Raila Odinga. Those are some of the questions, and whether that swearing in ceremony will indeed take place right here at Uhuru Park, or it will be taking place at a separate location. But again, Charles, what are some of the issues that we are trying to find out is what time this event will kick off and the whereabouts on exactly the timing of that particular swearing in. And so for now, Charles, I'm hand it back to you. But again, of course, the looming showdown regarding what the pictures we are trying to get them to you right here from Uhuru. We will, of course, let those pictures some talk about being banned, but of course, we will to you on the security situation and the looming showdown between NASA supporters as well as the police officers who have started arriving. Some we've met on our way. We've met some of the water cannons as well as police contingents being driven right into just around the Uhuru Park. But as and when we came, the Uhuru Park was accessible to members of the public because these members have accessed Uhuru Park using the gates on my right as well as on my left, as well as the gate that is right at Uhuru Highway. And so that is the situation here at Uhuru Park. This place had been cordoned off, according to the police commandant Japhet Koome, as well as the Nairobi City Council that said this place is under renovation and so there will be no one to be allowed to come here. And so those are the issues that we are trying to follow them up right here at Uhuru Park. We will be camping here to see whether this event will kick off, and at what time NASA supporters who, yesterday we saw guys coming all the way from Mombasa, whether they have arrived here. But as for now, this is the crowd that we've met right here inside Uhuru Park. And we will be able to link up again with you, Charles, later on, as and when things begin to unfold right here at Uhuru Park grounds, Nairobi. Charles.
Thank you very much, Stephen Leto. I wish you could hear us, because I needed to find out exactly, you established for us very cautiously what is it that is being burnt behind the dais. I'm sure we'll communicate to you through the director and let us know what is it that is being burnt behind the dais. Please exercise caution while you approach whatever it is that is being burnt. We are taking a short commercial break. We'll be right back with a review of the papers. In the studio with me this morning, Mheshimiwa Jared Okello, Member of Parliament for Nyando constituency. We are still expecting Nairobi County Assembly Speaker Beatrice Elachi.